but thinks he might have to. So today we're doing the review note, and then if you could look at your stamp sheets, or just look at mine for a second. The homework is the review assignment, and it's also Tuesday's homework, and it's due on the block day. On the block day, we're going to do, so Tuesday, we're doing the team test. Block day is a review scavenger hunt, and then test is Friday. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. All right, so back to the review notes. Okay, so these two are called same base exponentials. I have an easy one and quite spicy one there. So 5 to the 3p minus 3 equals 5 squared. You look so pretty. Okay, and cancel, cancel. 3p minus 3 equals 2 plus 3 plus 3. 3p equals 5. P equals 5/3. If it helps your brain, put a little tree diagram over there if you need it to help you see where the 25 changed into 5 squared. Pretty sure that this one's okay though. This one is in a different level. This one should probably be all right with everybody. Okay, so number 2, what base do you want to use? There's 2 options. What jumps out of your mind is the base to use? 4, okay. And you can use 4. You can also use 2. 2 will also work. 4, I think, is easier because it makes the numbers less. But anyway, so over here, because this is review notes, I'm going to show my trees. So 16 is 4 times 4. And 64 is 16 times 4, which is 4 times 4 times 4. So there's my little tree work over here. 64 is 4 to the 4 to the third. And then you multiply on the little n that was living there before you started the problem. I'm going to do this fraction part in 2 steps. So first thing I'm going to do is change the 16 to be 4 squared. So you can very clearly see what happened there. And then the little 1 minus n exponent that was on there before. Okay, and then I'm going to bring that upstairs. That looks terrible. 4 to the 3n equals 4 to the negative 2. So bringing that upstairs makes it negative 2. And then 1 minus n goes in parentheses for a distributive property. So cancel. 3n equals negative 2, 1 minus n. 3n equals negative 2 plus 2n. And I'm just letting that one sit there for a second. Anyone want to ask or say anything about this problem before we move on? That one is, I really think that's about as spicy as those could possibly get. That's worst case scenario right there. You might want to put a little star next to that one if that was rough for you. Practice that again later. There are some of these on the review assignment also. Okay, now move to number 3 when you're ready. I'm gonna do my usual colors. This is an inverse problem, so I'm gonna get my blue and my red and my green out. Hmm, this pen seems to be dying. Please hold. Okay, what is the locator point for this graph right here? 0, 2. Anybody want to ask about why I got 0, 2? Well, H would be in parentheses here that don't exist, so that means it's 0. If you want to write this, if that helps you. Okay, notice I've made my table small. I can see that it's a cubic, so I'm just gonna find 1 point on either side. So 1, -1, as I feel like it's gonna go off the graph because this graph only goes to 6. But okay, so starting with 1 cubed is 1. 1 times -2 is -2 plus 2 is 0. -1 cubed is -1 times 2 is +2 plus 2 is 4. Okay. And what we're going to do is just use what we know about cubics to make it look like a cubic. So -1, 4, 0, 2, 1, 0. And you would definitely not make this a line with a ruler because you're supposed to know it's a cubic. Okay. All right, now we're going to find the inverse and we're going to do the steps. So if I plug something in here for x, exponents come first. So first step would be cube. Then times -2, then +2. Okay, and then you're done with the blue pen for this problem. If you're using blue, if you're doing the color thing. Now we're going to do inverse. Okay. Now I scanned down my list and I see that I'm going to multiply by -2. So that means I'm going to start my x a little bit over. I didn't do the inverse steps, did I? Got to do those first. And there's going to be division. Never mind. Well, I need a cube root. Okay, anyway. Okay. -2 first. Why did I write a 1? It must be Friday. My brain is fried on Friday. Again. fried. Okay, anyway, minus 2 divide by -2 cube root everything. Um, and I can bet you that this is not the final answer for CUDA. I'm sure that they got rid of this negative and flipped this in here and made this 2 minus x. I think we talked about that the other day. I don't really care. Do you guys remember we talked about that on the mid chapter? Anybody remember? I'm not really, I'm not as worried about CUDA is about formatting of answers, but I believe there was something. Anyway, okay. Luckily enough, we do not need to plug anything in here. We can flip the table. Just if anybody that's really gonna bother to have that -2 in the denominator, that's how you fix it. I don't care. I'm just saying. Some of you guys will probably care. If you don't care, why should we care? I don't know, because you might. Okay, then you're supposed to resist the urge to make this a line because it's a cube root. And then, and then, okay, any questions on this problem other than this little business here that I'm just being really picky about? Good? Okay. All right. State if the given functions are inverses. You have 3 ways to do this. You can find the inverse of one of them and check the other. You could look at the graphs and the tables, but I'm going to do stack function machine method because that's my favorite. And we were practicing that notation on the Kahoot. So I'm going to do G of 0. I'm going to start with the top one. It doesn't matter. You can do the bottom one. I don't care. But I'm going to start with G of 0, -4 minus 4/5 times 0 is -4. Okay, then you drop that into F. Okay. Now the fours cancel and the negatives cancel. So you have 5 minus 5, which is 0. So the question is, are they inverses? Okay, because you put in 0 and you got -4, and then you put in -4 and you got 0 back. So it went full circle basically. If you put in a 1 here at the very beginning, you should expect to get a 1 back out at the end. And if that's the case, then you have inverses. Unless there's just some really like weird coinky dink in there, but I wouldn't do that to you. Okay, any questions about number 4? Do you remember that one from the Kahoot? No, you don't remember? The one from the Kahoot that was like f of g of 0, and you're supposed to do stack function machine? Yeah. Okay. Number 5. Identify the domain and range of each, then sketch the graph. So I'm going to grab my blue sheets real quick. Pause. You notice it says sketch the graph. Sketching is fine. I do care about some particular things. I think it's easiest to start by labeling A, H, and K because I like to use those in my formulas. Um, A is 1, and if you want to, you can put a 1 in front of the log. H is -5, and K is 3. So A is 1, H is -5, K is 3. And I labeled these because I didn't want you to think K was 3 from that little baby thing, although I don't think you would have, but just trying to make sure. Okay, so I do care about some stuff. I care about the asymptote first. Vertical asymptote at x equals h. Vertical asymptote at x equals h is what I'm going to do first. Then I'm going to get my ruler and go to -5. Okay, next I'm going to do the locator, which is h plus 1 comma k. You can also find that graphically by just finding hk and then jumping one spot over. Okay, now I'm going to sketch the graph. Again, I don't care about the steepness of your curve. What I care about is that you see that A is a positive. You come from the bottom along the asymptote, hit the locator point, and curve off. Domain is x is greater than h, and the range is all real numbers. All right, let's do number 6. From yesterday, we learned a little thing. If there's no base on your log, put a little baby 10 there. It's not actually going to affect this problem at all, but just get in the habit of putting a little 10 there for a while until you're like really super used to that it's log base 10. Okay, so A equals 1, H equals 1, K equals 4. Vertical asymptote at X equals H. Locator point is H plus 1 comma K. Or you can go to HK and bump yourself 1 over. Positive A value, which almost all of them are going to be. Come up from the bottom. Curve off. Domain X is greater than H. Range, all real numbers. You guys have any questions about the, when you do the review assignment, you know how I always include the answer page? Your arrow might not be exactly the same tilt as the arrow in the answer page because we're sketching it. We don't care anymore. It doesn't have to be exactly the same like amount of curve as there. You can kind of tell I do sort of the same thing every time. But theirs is probably more accurate. Anything? You guys okay? Okay, flip to the other side when you're ready. Yeah. Find the inverse of each function. Okay, so we're going to do this in steps, backward steps, write the inverse. Okay, original steps. I plug something in here for X. First step that I'm going to do to it is log base 3. After I log base 3, whatever number that is, then I would add 10. Okay, inverse steps. First step, minus 10. Second step, what undoes log base 3? 3 to the power. Beautiful. Okay, now this is going to feel a little weird. I'm going to write it twice because it's review notes. I have the ability to see ahead, but you guys might not. So I always tell you to start with an X, minus 10 first, and then you do 3 to the power of all that. But then your 3 ends up like down here, weirdly. So I'm going to rewrite this like that. If you have the forethought to go immediately here, that's fine. But that's sort of my work in progress one up there. Do you guys see what I did? Anyone want me to do that again? Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. So, okay, so I always tell you guys to start with an X when you do these problems. And the first thing I would do to it would be minus 10. And then this thing says, now take that stuff and make that 3 to the power of it. So my 3 to the power of it is down here, which looks gross. So I'm going to rewrite it 3 to the power of it with the 3 in the same line as the y inverse. It's okay to have like a work in progress one and then your final. Okay, now this one. Step 1 is 4 to the power. Step 2 is minus 3. Step 1 in the inverse is plus 3. Step 2, undo 4 to the power is log base 4. Okay, now this, I can tell the log base 4 is going to go in the front. So I'm going to move my x over. Add 3 first, because that's the first step. And then log base 3, 4. Log base 4 of everything. Okay. Rewrite each equation in exponential form. That's Guinan circle, 11 to the 2 equals 121. These are my favorite. They take like 3.06 seconds, and then I get to move on with my life. Okay, now we're going to go backwards. Now that we have the answer from the Guinan circle here, it's actually easier. So we're going to go backwards from that. So log, just remember the base of your exponent is the base of your log. And then what it equals goes here, parentheses or not, it doesn't matter, equals 2. So equals the exponent. And then what I do in my mind is I go and check my work. Make this like cloud Guinan circle. And I'm like, is it correct? 8 squared equals 64. Yeah. Do you like my cloud Guinan circle? Good stuff. It's good stuff. Those are my favorite. I could do a whole worksheet of those. Okay, next 4 problems are also Guinan circle, but we actually have to do something. No. Equals x. Guinan circle. 3 to the x equals 81. I bet most of you guys already know that it's 3 to the 4th by now, but just it's notes, you know. Do I need to make the tree for 36? I'll just do it. Okay. Now, Mrs. Talbot sometimes is a genius. And I put number 12 and 13, one right after the other on purpose. Can you see why? Positive 2, negative 2. Oh no. Mrs. Talbot, how could you? We were on such a roll there. Okay, what do I do with this? Anybody want to tell me? It's going to be, yeah, the final answer, but it's not a half. Okay, so 243 is 3 to the what? 5? And you can make a tree for that. You can guess and check on your calculator if you want. Um, so I turn this into one of those problems like we did at the beginning of the review notes. 243 is 3 to the 5, and then multiply on the x that was already living there. Okay, and I want to cancel out the bases. This one needs an exponent. 3 is 3 to the 1, so you have to actually think about that. So Gio was right, it ends up being a fraction. Okay, 2 more. Extraneous type problem. Uh, what do I do here first? What's the first step? What? I heard it. Plus P, beautiful. First step on these is always to get the square root alone. Now, it's kind of bad news that there's a binomial on the other side. Okay, now don't be the person that forgets the box. We're pro box here in this classroom. Got 48, 40, 48? Gosh, I hope I didn't need that room for number 16. Hmm, 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 12 and 4, 6 and 8. Oh, duh. We just did that over here. Anybody check them already without me? 4. So this is square root of 4 minus 6 equals -8. That is false. So, anybody already do this problem and agree? Checking my work Friday morning. Sweet. All right, last one. I'm gonna get out colored pencils here. You can if you want to, don't have to. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna pick a couple points for 3 to the x. Do you guys know what shape this should be? 3 to the x, we've worked on it all chapter. Exponential, right? So, okay. So I'm just gonna find a couple points on it just to make the sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, on the test, you guys will have a graphing calculator. You can use that to find the table for speed, but I'm just gonna do this. So 3 to the 0 is 1. 3 to the 1 is 3. 3 to the 2 is 9, which I realize is off the graph, but it's okay. It's just a little. Okay, and solid or dashed on this one? Solid. Come along the asymptote and curve. Just using my knowledge of the general shape of exponentials to sketch that in. No big deal. Okay, now 0, 0 is right here. 0 is less than or equal to 3 to the 0. 0 is less than or equal to what? True. The first true we've had in ages. Okay, now for the parabola, I'm going to use the A=1 trick to graph it. My vertex is at -3, 5. And it's going downward, so down 1/1, 4, 9, and dashed. Zero is less than -0 plus 3 squared plus 5. Zero is less than -9 plus 5. Zero is less than -4. False. So that means I don't shade where 0, 0 is. I shade inside.